The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
Look who's come out of his cave.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in again for another episode of Cave Dweller Music. I am James, and we have Brendan here with me. Unfortunately, Matt is unavailable due to time zone differences, but today we have Nick from Hessian Firm with us. How's it going, Nick?
Oh, very fine. Thanks for having me over, guys.
No worries. So for anyone who doesn't know, we've actually had a partnership with Hessian Firm for a while that we kind of started our page at the same time as they were starting to really come up. And it's been kind of cool to see their page and their label grow alongside ours. And it's actually kind of funny how Nick and I met. I'm not sure if you remember, Nick, how you and I actually connected.
I can't remember.
So I posted something about a Morbid Angel album in a death metal group, and Nick pretty much told me I was wrong. And him and I got into a discussion, 15, 20 comments. And he was like, dude, I'm just going to message you. And he messaged me and he checked it. He noticed we had the page and he checked it out. I was like, man, you and I don't really agree on everything, but I like the way you write. So do you guys want to get something going here? So that was actually how you and I got to know each other. And Brendan, I think you only met Nick pretty recently, right? Like a couple of weeks back?
Yeah, just through random kind of peeking through our chat through the messenger, talking to him about how he recently got kicked off of Facebook.
So Nick, did you want to tell us a little bit about Hessian Firm and what you guys do?
Basically, it was a bunch of people who knew each other on Discord for a while. And, we're all big music fans. We're always arguing and going on about music. A few of us were writers. Some of us, were involved in projects, bands, a lot of different stuff. And it just kind of came to us, that it's cool to talk about stuff, between us. But like the way you guys did it, we just wanted to, share what was going on. And you can put in your word, you can put in your heart, your soul, what a lot of musicians do. But you can also put in your money. And I really wanted to get involved into the whole technical side of making CDs and everything. And so, the label kind of came naturally to me.
And how long have you guys been up and running now?
Unofficially, I'd say we've had this conversation for maybe about a year and a half. And then I think, things got really going, the first talks with the first couple of bands we wanted to sign in about January or so.
Okay. And who was the first band you signed?
Hosts of Lord, very kind of peculiar band, because you look them up on Metal Archives. They're American, but they were inspired, by the LLN movement in France, French black metal from the late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay,
I was like,
interesting.
Very distinctive French style. I'm not sure if you're familiar with bands like Vlad Tepes, Mutilation, and all that.
No, I'm actually not. That's something I'm going to have to look up after this call. And the first band that you put us onto, I think, was Ancient Gate.
Yeah, Ancient Gate was, I think, it was the second band I signed. Third, it was one of the first, because you can tell, once again, I didn't do this on purpose, but they have that kind of Swedish melodic black metal style that I love. Sacramentum, Dawn, Dissection. And
right.
On the other hand, they also have that kind of mid-90s French sound, right? That I also love.
And they're actually South American, aren't they?
Yeah, from Argentina.
Right. I thought of something like that. It's interesting that they're inspired by so much European music coming from an Argentina black metal scene.
Yeah, I mean, and Latin America, some people might not agree, but they have nothing to envy from anyone when it comes to metal.
No, I agree, and they have a very Latin America has a very definite style of black metal as well. I think probably Sarcophago is one of the few to kick it off right at the start. That 80s raw thrash speed metal black blend.
Yeah, exactly. And then Sepultura, when they first started in 1985, Morbid Visions, that was essentially a death metal album.
Those guys were they really invented that whole South American sound and style.
Yeah, very aggressive. In your face, no holds barred black metal.
Definitely.
I actually wanted to know about what you had on your current roster and what you got coming up in the future.
All right. Well, on the current roster, we At the moment we're releasing the Into Oblivion, Waves of Serpentine Ascension, the EP that's coming out on the 29th of September.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we've been very focused on that. You guys did a great job with the premiere for Where Winds Wail and Gnaw.
We were happy to help out with that.
Yeah, it was a really good album.
So that's the band we're focusing on. Then very soon we have a Goatcraft a collection of demos from 2000. I think they were recorded in 2009. They were never used, so it's actually a two-part CD. First CD is going to be the 22 untitled songs that were never used on any album, and then the second part is going to feature a 20-minute live performance that combines a lot of the stuff from Goatcraft's previous works and makes them into one song.
Wow!
It's like a best of, played live on a big piano, but because it was recorded in a radio room, the bass notes on the piano literally rumble and they're distorted, and it sounds like a guitar almost.
Really,
that's
So
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, so we're really happy for that. And then also coming out, we have the new Methodist EP.
I'm very excited for that one personally.
Yeah, me
Those
too.
guys are great.
But they're perfectionists, and they like to take their time. They tweak the slightest thing. I get messages, and the guys are telling me, look, I just did one small thing on the kick drum. Now it sounds a million times better, like very detail-oriented band. So they take their time.
I think that's what happens when you get like a really quality and passion for the music is, you take your time and you don't just bang it out to get it out there. These artists are taking it so seriously, and it's really good to see that. Oh
yeah, I definitely agree with you. But then again, I've come to realize, a lot of bands have just literally smashed out records. Dark Throne, Transylvanian Hunger. I think it took them like 3 weeks to write and record everything.
Yeah, you definitely get those passion projects where something just comes together and an album's just born in like a week or two. It's always kind of crazy. There was actually an album we reviewed not long ago from a guy who goes under the name Moonlow, and he recorded one song per day over a 7-day period. And that's how he put the album together. But the album was actually set in a theme of covering a 1 week span in his life. But yeah, stuff like that. It's always kind of cool to see someone put together ideas that just flow in like such a short period of time.
Yeah, different people have different personalities. Some people artistically have to be spontaneous to really express themselves, while others have to be a bit more meticulous.
Right. Or then you get bands like Tool and Winter Sun who take like 15 years to put an album together.
Mate, I don't believe it took them 15 years. I just think they were thinking, we can cash in on the last albums just by living up to that hype.
Very true.
Well, definitely, I think it definitely was that was the case. And I think like everyone's expectations were, I think it kind of backfires a little bit because everyone's expectations were so high for those albums. And when they came out, everyone's like, well, this is pretty good, but did I really want to wait 15 years for this?
I personally loved it.
Have you heard Chinese Democracy, by Guns N' Roses?
Yes.
That you can tell it took 15 years to write because it goes from all the styles that came in that time period, and it just sounds like a disjointed mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know what you mean with that, actually. It's been a long time since I listened to that album, though. Like at least like 8 years or something.
I remember the hype because, there was Buckethead. I was thinking, what the hell is Buckethead doing in Guns N' Roses? Then he got kicked out like 2 weeks later or something.
That guy's worked with some pretty big names. He's a pretty talented dude.
He's tried his hand at like some death metal stuff, instrumental death metal as well. He has like 100 EPs, I think, 3 albums, but 117 EPs or 120 or something like that. So he's.
That is crazy.
It's a lot of work.
And there was another artist that you had on your roster. I think you said was working on something. Did you say Polemicist also had something?
Yeah,
in the works?
Polemicist has a pretty big album coming up. They're really experimenting with their sound because, it was really funny. Methodist and Polemicist, they had no idea who they were, like a year, 2 years ago, right? But both kind of made similar music. Mm-hmm. And there was this interview, where the guys from Methodist said that they loved Polemicist's album and, they wanted to get in touch with each other. And then, Polemicist also felt a kind of union with them, musically. So I decided, to get both of them together, but then there are things that, the lead guitarist from Polemicist, Lydia Giordano, she's a classically trained musician, so you can hear that, the way they layer like these kind of really simple, black metal riffs on top of each other, that just makes a huge, a huge sound, also very rich and very dense. And they're continuing in that direction with the new record, but they're pushing things further. They're going to experiment a bit more. Try and really craft their own style.
That's exciting. I'm really looking forward to hearing that one as well.
I mean, we have Ancient Gate, who's starting to work on some new demos as well for a lot of different ideas. But within that style, but a kind of maybe a bit more atmospheric this time around and less epic.
Yeah, they did have a bit of an epic sound to them, especially like the album cover kind of gives you that idea when you look at it. It's like a very fantasy, gothic type album cover.
Oh yeah, I just think the artwork for the album was brilliant, though. I really enjoyed it.
It's very cool. We thought so too. And I know that you said Into Oblivion's kind of the band you're pushing at the moment. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about them?
Yeah. So basically, I've been talking to the guys quite a bit now, and they've all known each other since like the younger guys were 14. The ages go from like 14 to 17 within the band. So they started like 2009, and I think they've been rehearsing together every Friday, except holidays and obligations to get together. So they've really had that time to kind of build those really epic songs. The last song that that's been premiered on NCS, Eagle of the Serpent Sun, is 20 minutes long. And on the previous album, they have songs that are 22 minutes long, and it's only on this EP where they experimented with shorter songs.
Oh, yeah. No, they're really good, too. I really love, like, longer tracks. A lot of people don't, but I think that it shows, like, the musicianship, the work, and, like, the teamwork, and, like, everything goes into that. I think is almost a better a song versus like, a 4-minute long song where everything's just structured and banged out real quick. I really appreciate the long songs.
I completely agree with you. Even some bands that I don't really like, I always think that their longer songs are better than the shorter songs because, to make a 25-minute song exciting, it takes a lot more work than to do that with a 2-minute song.
Exactly. And they fill their songs with lyrics too, like the whole entire time. So like, it's not just like, a little bit of, lyrics sung and harmonized and then, or even repeated. Like, it's like they're telling long stories and it's really awesome.
I was just going to say, I remember reading from the band that they are heavily inspired by classical composition. And you can kind of tell that with their music, the way that they write their songs and the way they're structured. They have a lot of composing elements going on there. It's not just standard, we'll slap a song together.
Yeah, I know exactly. These guys are inspired by bands like, the first two At the Gates albums, bands like Averse Sephira, who had, they didn't have the long songs, but they had the very rigidly, classically composed, where where these guys and Into Oblivion take these kind of ideas and really, flesh them out. They try to have like an introduction, a development where things kind of get bigger and bigger, have like maybe like an interlude, where things calm down for a bit, and then kind of builds up to a climax and, conclusion. And they're very aware of how their songs are arranged.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe them is rather than calling them songs, you can almost call them movements, as in like a classic sense.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, And one thing, the band really wants is that when people listen to their music is to not have any breaks between the songs in such a way.
Yeah, they flow right into each other, which is really great. Right.
And that's where you get those issues with people, having a playlist and it coming up on shuffle or something, and they lose like the whole atmosphere of the album. And a band's been, this is something that always bothered me, is people put albums on shuffle. And a lot of the time, I think a band puts a lot of effort and thought into the way an album's arranged and the order that you put tracks in. And sometimes people are like, well, the album wasn't that great. Like, the songs didn't really gel. I'm like, well, did you listen to them in order? They're like, no. I'm like, well, that's probably part of why it didn't gel. It's like some albums have a natural progression from start to finish that you're meant to follow.
So too, and when bands aren't doing that, it's chaotic sounding,
Like, imagine just purposely, listening to an album, by starting with the outro first, and then having like like in a lot of death metal albums, where they have the synth intro at the beginning of the album, and you have that in the middle. It just would not make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, some albums are put together pretty weirdly like that, though. Like sometimes I really question decisions the band makes about where they put songs in an album. There was one recently that I listened to. We actually reviewed it. I can't remember the band's name, but it was a death metal album, and then the fifth track on the album was randomly like a bonus track that was a cover of like 80s speed metal, or hair metal, actually. It's closer to hair metal. And it just put it at like track 5, and then it carried on with death metal from 6 to 10 onwards. I was like, okay, it's cool that you did that as like a cover song type thing, but like, why did you put it at track 5
like
out of 10?
The last song.
It made a lot of sense. It's like, here's a bonus track, something cool we did enjoy, not like it broke up the album completely.
Well, apparently, a lot of the the new wave of British heavy metal bands used to do a lot of weird things like that, and then some of the lesser known thrash metal bands have covers in the middle of the album that don't fit the style as well.
Interesting.
It's when people used to flip over vinyls and stuff, so
right. Okay. Well, that makes sense in that context.
Because I'm not sure, are you guys familiar with Heathen, Victims of Deception?
Yes.
Randomly throughout the album, they play a rainbow cover, Kill the King.
Right, yeah. I actually forgot about that.
It's a great song, right? And the cover's not bad, but it just does not work with the kind of like super fast thrash metal that they're going throughout, the rest of the album.
Right.
Yeah, and you can have the outline track. There's no problem with that, but you shouldn't put it like, in the middle of the album. You should have it as like an afterthought, like, hey, here's something cool we did because we really like this song, not like, this is part of the album, here's track 5, and then back to thrash.
Actually, about not on any of your roster stuff, but like, if you could sign any band, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ouch. Now that's a hard question. Dead or alive, man. Ooh,
you could do also both. This could be a 2-part question.
Yeah, both.
All right. So for dead, I'd sign Michael Jackson for the money. Oof, for alive, any because there are a lot of bands I'd love to sign, but let me see. I'm just gonna pick one by completely random. I'm gonna go for At the Gates because their first album is one of my favorite albums ever. The Red Sky Is Ours. And I would love just to, to get my hands on the tapes, send them to an engineer I know, and really get that whole thing remixed and give it the sound it deserves.
Right on.
Yeah, that album does have a bit of a raw production sound to it, doesn't it? It's a bit. It's not the clearest. Yeah. It's a great album.
Because every single musician on that album is doing something completely insane. Even the vocals are pitched very precisely. The guitarist Alf Svensson, he'd go up to the singer and he goes, when you scream here, I want it to be slightly higher than this. Now I want it to be a bit lower like this, etc.
What were your thoughts on the 2 new releases of theirs? I actually really liked the previous one. I haven't given enough attention to the most recent, but the one before that, a couple of years back, I really enjoyed that album.
I can't remember. I think what was it? The last one was To Drink from the Night Itself, I think.
Yes, that was the most recent one, and then there was one like a year before that, I think, or 2 years before that. That was their comeback album, pretty much.
Damn, I think I completely missed it on my ring.
Oh, you missed that one. Hang on, I'll double check the name for you. Give me 2 seconds. At War with Reality. It was 2014. Sorry, it's like 6 years. Wow, that time has passed quickly.
It's wild how that.
At War with Reality.
I think nowadays, they have their sound and then style, and ever since Slaughter of the Soul, and they're very content with working within that style.
I actually much preferred that one to Slaughter of the Soul because it wasn't quite as melodic death metal. I mean, it still had the melody elements, but it was a little bit rawer. I thought personally, at least.
Me too. I felt a bigger return to the thrash metal roots.
Exactly, that's what I missed about it. Because I'm not the biggest fan in the world of super melodic death metal. I'm much more into like the classic OSDM stuff, but There's a few like Gothenburg style bands that did some really good melodic work in the 90s, but overall, I'm not the biggest melodic death metal fan.
I don't know. I'm kind of toss up on that because I like the longer songs in death metal where it's like a little stretched out and like kind of not just slammed in your face. And melodic also like could be so many different things, you know, where you're using different instruments or synths and stuff. So it kind of leaves it up, or like even acoustic instruments, you know, can make it melodic. So I like it.
When it came to the melodic bands, obviously, for anyone who's lived in Europe, that stuff was huge, and it was essentially, what metal was to the mainstream metal fan, to the whole world. Everyone was united under the banner of bands like In Flames, Soilwork, Arch Enemy, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So, I grew up with that stuff, but nowadays I like kind of the death metalier ones, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? The ones who aren't as melodic. I'm not sure if you guys know Eucharist, for example, who I call them death metal, but a lot. But if someone called them melodic death metal, I wouldn't be I wouldn't be surprised. They kind of flirted with both sides of the barrier.
For me, it's definitely more about like what I like about late 80s, early 90s classic death metal is just the crunch and the tone and how raw the whole thing is, and it's not overproduced. It's kind of just like, here's a bunch of guys playing really disgusting music, and we're going to just kind of slap it together as it is, and here's an album. And I just liked how raw and genuine it was. I guess that's what draws me to it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, bands like Autopsy, who would just like throw.
Exactly. Yeah, Autopsy is a good example of what I'm talking about. That those guys literally just made whatever they wanted to make and put it out as they liked it, and I love that.
And it's surprisingly really melodic, especially on Mental Funeral.
Yes. Yeah, see, I like bands that do have melodic elements, but that the music itself is still raw, if that makes sense.
I'm thinking of the song Dead on Mental Funeral, the one that has a kind of little Arabian-styled melody in it.
Right, yeah. That album actually has quite a few like doom elements.
The slow crushing riffs.
Yeah, that was like a kind of a game changer back in the day, from what I've heard. Those guys were like really slowed it down and made it crushingly heavy. I mean, they weren't the first, obviously, because you had Immolation, you had Incantation. Those guys were both like the kings of crushing and slow and heavy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and some time ago, I went back to the first, Autopsy, Severed Survival, and it features the guy who got kicked out of Death, after they recorded Leprosy. It sounds like a doomier version of what early Death was doing at the time.
I always forgot that he was in Autopsy. I don't remember his name.
Ross, was it? I think, or something. I can't remember. Something like that. Roz, I think, was the last name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And he did a lot in Leprosy, I remember.
And Severed Survival was a great album, though. So is Leprosy. Both absolutely killer
I
albums.
love both.
Brendan, do you have any early death metal favorites?
I would say if I had, I don't know, man. Early, I got into death metal late. So, because I came from the hardcore scene, I think I would say like Autopsy, and then I'd hate to say it, but one of the first bands that I got into for death metal was Mortician, and
really?
as much as I don't know, I like their aggressive, fast, pace, but some of it was just so it just hurt my ears.
Yeah, Mortician are borderline a joke band, because I remember the first time listening to them.
Yeah,
and
the drum machine.
Yeah, and the samples, I'm thinking, maybe one day I want to watch those movies, and I'd appreciate if you guys didn't spoil it.
You know who else is really big on that as well was Necrophagia.
Yes, Killjoy.
Yeah, Yeah, Killjoy loved his. I was really sad when he passed. By the way, I really like Killjoy's work, but he did some fantastic horror sampling, especially in some of the earlier stuff that they did, and I think he was one of the pioneers of like horror metal. To be honest, in my opinion, he was up there.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is that Phil Anselmo actually played on one of his albums.
Oh, which one?
Seasons of the Dead, was it? I can't remember. It's like
that was the Seasons of the Dead was the very first album, wasn't it? Like the released in like 89 or 88.
yeah, no, he didn't play on that one. He played on the second album. I can't remember what it was called.
It's. I want to say it's on the tip of my tongue. Here we go. It was the Divine. Oh no. Was that Holocausto de la Morte?
Yeah, I think he played on that one. I think his name was like Anton Crowley or something. Yeah, he had a like something really cheesy like that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've been listening to for like newer death metal, Live Burial. They have like that old school kind of sound, but it's like so nice and refreshed.
I don't think I've actually listened to them. You have to link me an album after this. This call.
Unending Futility is the name of the album that just came out from them. I highly recommend it.
Okay, I'll definitely check that out.
There are so many OSDM albums coming out right now, you know, I just get confused in between them all.
Yeah.
It's actually really cool.
Great. Yeah, they're pretty good. I think you'd like them. Actually, I definitely think you'd like them.
Yeah, the past sort of 12 to 24 months, there's been in the OSDM style.
Oh,
and I've been absolutely loving it.
There's a couple other bands that are coming out now with brand new work.
Yeah, and Nick, I know that every now and then I come across one. I just send it your way.
The Shadows at the World's End from Revolting out of Sweden. They have a couple tracks.
Okay. Oh, yeah. That was really good.
Yeah,
that was really good.
Like that was amazing. So good.
And Skeletal. There was that's I think there's from Sweden as well. That band Skeletal that brought out a new album this year. That was also fantastic.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some good stuff. And then I actually just got into this. I posted it the other day. Come Back from the Dead out of Spain. They released an album last year called The Rise of the Blind Ones. And I definitely recommend that as well if you haven't caught that. And
there was also Cemetery Filth that brought out their debut album this year. That was also fantastic.
Oh yeah, I remember you shared that with me. That was pretty disgusting, really.
It was filthy, and it had some absolutely fantastic riffs, like really great death metal riffs.
Yeah, I know we can't forget about Skeletal Remains. Like that was so.
Oh yeah, did you check that out yet, Nick?
I got to.
That was great. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, you know, I really love that on that one, they had more of a kind of old school mentality to things, you know, where they let themselves go. They weren't really, you know, tied down to any style. You know, it's like whatever worked. And, you know.
Exactly.
I think, you know, they have a lot to teach, you know, to a lot of these bands who sometimes I feel they're a bit too codified. You know, they stick within death metal codes, despite some of them doing it really, really well. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the guys in the 90s, I don't think they cared about what the codes were. You know, they didn't even know how to record their stuff most of the time. So
yeah, I think the whole obsession in modern death metal to be as fast and heavy as possible. And I don't think it's necessary, to be honest. Like, it's really cool to see bands going back to slowing it down to like a mid-tempo pace or like a slower, heavier, creeping pace. So A Feather and Bone has been another notable band that's caught my attention. And they're coming out with Sulfuric Disintegration, and it looks like it's going to be phenomenal. Yeah, I really like the last two albums. Nick, do you know those guys?
Not at all. Send me a link, or, you know, when this is done.
Definitely. They're fantastic. I think you'll like them. Colorado? I think you're right. I think they are. Have either of you guys heard of Undeath?
No, I don't.
Familiar.
They're like blowing up on Bandcamp at the moment. It's like they just keep topping up Bandcamp charts and stuff. They're like a new death metal band that plays an old school style. They have an album coming out. Well, their first album's coming out 23rd October. But I'll link you guys that as well after this. So it's another one for people to check out if they haven't heard that one.
Nice.
And there was one I sent you earlier in the year, Nick, as well. And if you remember, by a band called Obscene.
Oh yes, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was also a killer new wave death metal album.
Yeah, I mean, it's only getting better for this kind of old school death metal stuff that's been popular. What's funny as well is that a lot of these guys didn't grow up on death metal; they came from a hardcore background.
Right, and transitioning into the death metal sound.
Yeah, well, for me, it was like I loved like the intensity of hardcore, and I loved the breakdowns. And death metal had more of like the guitar solos and didn't really have the breakdowns, because I was like a young spry guy, like into the pits and whatnot, and I just like the breakdowns were nasty. I just wanted to, get in there and just get my body shoved around. And like now that I'm older and I'm not doing that as much, and I just come to appreciate, all like that style of like, the brutalness, the crunchy guitars, the drums, and then like, just the wild solos that just like bring you to another dimension in some of these bands,
I don't know about you guys, but what's your take on like tech death, like technical death metal? Are either of you fans of that style or no?
I appreciate it for me, but mostly I tend to, I don't know, shy away from it.
I went through a phase where I was really, really into it. I don't know, so I want to say 8 years ago or something, when I became obsessed with bands like The Faceless. Do you know those guys?
Is that the one with the guitarist who's like kicked out everyone from his band? Who does the clean vocals?
Every time, every album, he has a whole new stack of people because no one will work with him. Talented dude, but apparently he's like the biggest nightmare to work with in the music industry. So yeah, I think it's done like 4 albums, maybe 5, and every single album's had a completely different code apart from him.
See, that I feel like that's kind of hard to like keep your particular sound if you have one,
Well, they didn't. They changed the sounds a lot across their albums, which is one of the things I actually kind of liked about them, because they kind of experimented a bit. So like this first album was like had some sort of like gent elements, and then the second one was like straight up tech death. Third one sounded like he took pages out of Devin Townsend's book. It had like a lot of prog stuff and some weird like clean vocals and like orchestra stuff. And then the one after that was, I don't know, the one after that is very different again. It's got some really interesting aspects to it. It's cool music. It's just apparently he's not the best dude to work alongside.
What's your guilty pleasure band or album?
Oh, guilty pleasure. Look, I love pop music, so I don't consider Madonna's '80s output to be guilty pleasure or ABBA. I think they're genuinely good works, despite being very commercialized songs. But guilty pleasure. I don't really have guilty pleasure bands. I have guilty pleasure songs, really. So guilty pleasure, Antarctica by Suicide Boys, which is the only song I like by them. I think Money Machine by 100 Gex. A lot of just kind of really dumb, in your face rap music. Sometimes like a lot of autotune as well. Just like music that doesn't really care about artistic expression. It's just about having a bit of fun. Like really bouncy, jumpy stuff.
I actually just came upon a new guilty pleasure band, Eskimo Cowboy. It's so funny. I was like, I'm listening to it and I just died laughing hearing this song called Hypa Hypa. And for me, I was just like, I had to share this with people because this is too damn good not to, like whether it's a joke or you take him super serious, like it kind of slaps.
I actually really liked it as well. I didn't expect to, but I did.
I didn't either. I was just like, wow.
It's one of those things that like you shouldn't like it, but you do.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of Crotch Duster?
Yes. Yeah, that is a funny band.
You know, I think one of the reasons they're actually funny is because they're both really talented musicians. You know, when they like make fun of Glenn Danzig's voice, or they do, you know, the James Hetfield yeahs, and the whole, you know, the rapping, the kind of like wannabe deicide parts, and you know, I think, you know, I've seen this a lot on Bandcamp. But, you know, a lot of times people try to do, you know, the anal cunt style of being funny, you know, where it's just kind of like provocative song title, just, you know, random noise for music, and that doesn't do it for me. You know, I think, you know, comedy music is something that's very difficult to do properly.
There is that one really funny anal cunt album though. They did the completely folk one. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Picnic of Love.
Picnic of Love, yeah, that one had me in stitches.
Yeah, I used to listen to it a bit. I've listened to it like maybe 5 times overall, which is too much, but it's just so funny.
And Brendan, if you don't know Crotch Duster, their album is called Big Fat Box of Shit.
No, I haven't. I'm actually going to check it out later today.
And they have songs with titles like Mr. Indignant Erection, Mammal Sauce, Jogging in Hell.
Oh, God.
I mean, Mammal Sauce is one of the funniest songs I've ever heard in my life, you know.
Mammal Sauce is pretty funny. There was actually a band that we reviewed recently that did a really funny album. I can't remember the name of the band. Trinamerius, something like that. Hang on, I've got to do them justice. Give me 2 seconds. We can edit this out. Hang on. I will find it because I've got to give these guys a compliment. They actually did. No, that one is really funny though too. Nick, did you see that album I reviewed about that was ostrich themed brutal death metal from Japan?
Yeah,
Bird's View.
That's a brilliant cover.
I know, it's one of the most interesting concepts I've ever seen. Here we go. The band was called Timoratus, and their album was called My Life in a Mediocre Metal Band. And it was just really accurate. And they had like skits and stuff where they just did talking bits, but it was just like songs about like earning barely enough money at a gig to cover the cost of getting there in your van, and like trying to get enough Facebook likes for people to actually notice your band exists online. Like it was good stuff.
Have you guys heard Torso Fuck?
No,
I haven't.
I mean, they have this one song, you know, which is the dumbest thing ever. It's called "Raped by Elephants." And it's like, and you know, it's like an actual story about some guy who goes to see the elephants out in the wild in Africa, right? So he, you know, the lyrics go, you know, the narrator, you know, obviously, you know, does dirty things with elephants, and it's just the way the song, the final lyrics, you know, where he goes, you know, it wasn't so bad, but I'll never go back to Africa again. You know, that just had me like dying.
Do you guys know the band called the Black Satans?
Oh yeah, I remember them.
I don't know. No.
Do you remember those guys from like 9 years ago? They make fun of black metal, and the band's called the Black Satans, and then like the most popular song was called The Satan of Hell, and it's just a bunch of dudes in like corpse paint and full black metal gear in the forest, just being absolutely ridiculous, like making fun of black metal bands essentially. But that was some like really good comedy as well.
Sludge, they have they're
all
good about mollusks and slugs and all that fun stuff, like so good. Those guys really rip too for having such a fun kind of
they are fantastic. Like that album of theirs is one of the best albums of the year when it came out. That
Astronomicon
most recent one
has like all 3 of their albums on it.
Do you know those guys, Nick?
Yeah, I remember them. And they took like other band titles and songs, and they just, you know, added slug words. I remember them. There was
another band I listened to. There was actually another bird theme band, but all the vocals were actually bird screeches.
Oh, Hatebeak.
And Hatebeak, that's the one. Do you remember that? and they had like really funny names, like parody names of metal songs.
Beak of Putrefaction.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, bird seeds of vengeance, 7 perches, roost in peace, malt thrower. And then their album cover was like a ripoff of Number of the Beast, but with a giant bird in the background. And then you have to like acknowledge who's those guys. Cannabis Corpse.
Yeah.
Those guys have been huge in like the comedy parody sort of thing, and they've actually been really successful as well.
You know what? I'm going to say something that's very controversial, but I prefer Cannabis Corpse's music, unironically, to Cannibal Corpse's.
I mean, I can't judge you for that. They actually are good musicians, and they actually do make some pretty good music.
Absolutely.
You know,
and then the fact that you get to laugh at is fun as well.
You know, I actually saw them live once in a very small, sweaty concert room, and obviously everyone was smoking cannabis, right? And because I don't smoke cannabis at all. I remember literally like falling down in the pit because the place was, there's so much weed coming out, everywhere. And just like literally getting like a contact high, and because I don't smoke weed, I have very little tolerance to it.
What's going on around me?
Yeah, there's literally. And I remember, the bassist vocalist of Cannibal Corpse, he got really annoyed with people because in France, people, they roll their cannabis, they put tobacco in it, to make it easier to smoke.
Right.
And I remember the bassist just going on this huge rant about, why Europeans don't smoke weed properly.
Like, you gotta come straight out of the bong and then into my face. Like, what are you doing with this?
People in Australia do the same as well. They cut their weed with tobacco as well.
It's done with hash. I've never really seen it done with the other stuff.
So yeah, that is some of the comedy bands that the three of us listen to. If any of our listeners out there want to check those out, have a good laugh.
I definitely have some new ones on my list thanks to this conversation. So.
There's something I was going to ask you. Give me 1 second to get my thoughts together. I'm too busy thinking about bird-themed music. What is your sort of goal for Hessian Firm going forward? What are you trying to build with the label? Like, I know you guys have a definite sound. You like the really dark death and black metal. Is there a sort of direction you want to take the label in?
I definitely want to work within that kind of death black metal sound, that we've started to call the dark metal. In tribute to Bethlehem, whose first album was called Dark Metal, right? It's kind of a mixture, like very fluid mixture of death, black, and doom. Where for going forward, that's what we really want to see from more bands. I'm tired, of like bands. You go, oh, that's a cool death metal riff. Oh wait, here comes the black metal part. Look, we have these two fantastic extreme metal genres. Why don't we just kind of work by pushing them together and see where it goes?
It's funny that you mentioned Bethlehem because I absolutely love those guys, and I really don't meet enough people that appreciate them or know who they are. Really, their second album, Dictius Te Nicare, I think it's called. I absolutely love that album, but my younger brother absolutely hates it because I used to wake him up by blasting the first track, Schatten aus der Alexander Welt.
Yeah.
I used to put that on full volume next to his head while he was sleeping to wake him up in the mornings when I got up before him.
Fantastic. And the vocalist, that's one thing that kind of is a blessing and a curse with them because the vocalist is just fantastic in that style. I think he's the best ever to do that kind of overly high-pitched, over-the-top wailing. But then people get way too drawn in by the vocals, and they forget that, wait, there's some awesome music going on at the same time.
A controversial opinion, but I genuinely like Silencer as well.
Well, yeah, they have some cool riffs, but then, I think I did a lot of research on the guy, right? And, his story about the pig hooves for hands and everything. It's just a lot of nonsense. He never even went into a psychiatric hospital. It was actually his brother who used.
Oh, really?
His brother used to go in, but it was only on the weekends because of job-related burnout, from working. He was like something, I think he was working in an ambulance or firefighter. One of those jobs where you're expected to work 80 hours a week easily, right? It was only because of that. And
Interesting.
I remember, and that kind of killed the whole illusion for me, really. And when it comes to that band, I think they could be a bit more sincere with it. What they, well, I don't even know if you can call that screaming.
Wailing, I don't know what it is. Whatever his style is, it's his own style.
Yeah, no one else can do it. It's interesting and unique.
Well, for me, it was like it's the instrumentals, because some of the riffs on that album have never left my head since I listened to it the first time. Like some of the guitar work on the intros to those tracks are some of the catchiest intros I've ever heard in my entire life.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. When they're kind of going for that, they have these long instrumental passages that are not bad at all.
Yeah.
I was thinking, it's cool when they just let the music do the talking, without the gimmicky vocals or anything, or
Mm-hmm.
The sad boy kind of lyrics. And yeah, it's a shame. There was a lot of good stuff that came out from that band, from that one album.
Well, they inspired they kind of inspired, one of the inspirations, I guess, for like depressive suicidal black metal, DSBM, which is a genre I'm super into as well. I love bands like Life Lover and, what's the other one I'm thinking? Oh, I've got a mind blank now. Psychonaut, do you know those guys?
Yeah, I know those guys, yeah.
Psychonaut 4?
Yeah.
I think they're called.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. I was going to say, it wasn't it 4, yeah. I know I think, Russian guys, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And then you got like Apathy, Nocturnal Depression, Thy Light, Happy Days, like all those guys. I love that stuff. Make a Change, Cure Yourself.
Something, a controversial opinion, the first Shining album in that style, fantastic. Mm-hmm. What really makes it's not even the metal parts. I just love the piano and the acoustic guitar on the first Shining album.
Exactly, and that's what I loved about Silencer as well. It's those acoustic and piano parts that really made it such unique music, and that's what I like about DSBM is you get a lot of that acoustic and piano driven stuff, and like it's not really all about just being metal.
Yeah, it has atmosphere to it.
Exactly. A lot of emotion as well.
I like emotion and atmosphere. There's nothing wrong with those. I think it makes it better,
Exactly. And Brendan, you'd appreciate the fact as well that those genres generally tend to have longer songs.
Right, exactly. I was about to say, that's where you're starting to build in, your musicianship there, you're really putting it out. Like, building atmosphere takes time, and if you're doing it right, then, instead of just ear blasts, then, you're busting it out. Some great stuff.
Yeah, as much as I love a good blast beat, as much as the next person, sometimes it's nice to bands actually take a break from that,
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about, the comedic bands, I think Vital Remains, on their later stuff, almost becomes a comedic because they're just so obsessed with holding that blast beat. And I can't remember, there was this one Vital Remains song that is absolutely hilarious because, it's blasting along, and then at one moment, it feels like it's about to slow down, and the band just say, nope, and it just goes back to blasting like mad. You know what I mean?
Is this guy a machine? Is he human?
I really liked their first album. I posted that not too long ago on our page, and that was an absolutely awesome album.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
I think they had 3 vocalists. They had Glenn Benton as the later stuff, and that's the stuff that really blew up for them. They got really popular as Glenn Benton.
Yeah, Dechristianized, yeah.
Yeah, Dechristianized, and the one following that, there's another one. But the original vocalist was really good too, and then they had some other, I think 1 or 2 other dudes after him who I don't really know too much about, and then Glenn Benton.
Yeah, I mean, they've never had a stable lineup, really.
No.
Yeah, I think what's his name? Dave Suzuki, the guitarist, who's like the constant guy who's there every time.
Right. Yeah, he's the only constant factor. And and Deicide is one of those bands as well. Like speaking of Glenn Benton, like I love Deicide, and like the first few albums are really cool, but like they really take the whole anti-religious thing so far.
I mean, he ran out of ideas eventually. He had to go.
Exactly.
He's like, blame it on God. Fuck God. Death to Jesus. Like the most obvious stuff he could come up with.
I actually made a joke in our review of that first album saying that he hates God so much he had to join a second band to let people know. But I think he's the one who burnt the crucifix into his forehead, didn't he? He has an inverted cross in his forehead.
Yeah, he did, and he wanted to commit suicide at the age of 33.
That's pretty edgy.
And then he comes up like, nah, I never said that, man. That's asinine, That's childish. Only a coward would do that.
Okay. He's one of those dudes. And you know who else is like a bit of a joke? Like that always pops up in the metal community as well is what's his name? The original lead singer, Chris Barnes from Cannibal Corpse. The original vocalist from 6 Feet Under.
Oof, if you've seen what's been going on with their last album,
I have. It's been pretty funny.
They had the label. Is it Nuclear Blast who has them? I think
it might have been Nuclear Blast. It's one of the big ones. I know that.
I think it's Metal Blade, and they had to like disable the comments.
Yeah, it is Metal Blade. They disabled the comments in their videos. I saw that.
Yeah, and it has more dislikes than likes.
My main problem with him was that stuff that went down between him and the dude from Travis from Cattle Decapitation. Did you hear about that?
Oh yeah, we were talking about that the other day.
They sucker punched him and then locked himself in his room.
Yep.
Yeah, and apparently, whoever they kind of bullied the management were bullying Cattle Decapitation. They said they could.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
they didn't want to have shittier merchandise than Cattle, and they got mad about it because they didn't have good merch.
Oh man, that's outrageous. And then, like, my question is, like, how many Graveyard Classic albums can a band make? Considering that everyone said no, like one was too many.
Not enough, and not enough. We need another.
They made the first album, and everyone's like gave it like a 20% review, and they're like, "Let's make 3 more."
Right.
This is what the people want.
I actually know. I have a friend of mine who was convinced that AC/DC was covering 6 Feet Under.
Really?
Yeah. Because I don't think, I remember when they had, was it Graveyard Classics 3, where it was just Back in Black from A to Z. Well,
yes.
They, 6 Feet Under's kind of like promotional campaign was trying to pass it off as their own music, really.
Really? I didn't even see that.
They weren't being explicit about it because, they were still using, the word cover, and, everyone knows AC/DC, right? But they were still just the words used, by the bands, and when they were interviewed, like, oh, we're giving new life to this song, a breath of fresh air in the death metal climate. I was just like, really? Yeah.
Having listened to those covers, I definitely disagree. I think AC/DC gave it plenty of life to start with as well. It's AC/DC.
Right.
Yeah.
Like to cover an AC/DC song is one thing, but then to say that you're improving it is like a really big call.
Yeah, those are.
It's like
some weird pants to try to be filling.
I saw this guy in my newsfeed. He was running an ad. I can't remember his name, and I want to say it anyway because I don't want to shame the dude. But someone in my newsfeed sponsored an ad this week, and they did this video saying something like, "Are you sick of garbage music? Are you sick of mainstream music? I've got new music for you that's gonna blow your mind and like open you up to like real music." And then he proceeded to play like 3 of his songs, and it was like the most generic, terrible stuff I've ever heard in my whole life. And the comment section was just blowing up, and it was pretty funny. And like the best feedback I saw in the comment section was, "Hey man, I'm sorry, but this is very not good." But yeah, it's just like the lack of self-awareness that some bands and artists have about the quality of their music, and then when they shit talk other bands and artists, and then they can't really back it up.
The ego is terrible, man.
Anyway, I think we have pretty much run over time here. So, Brendan, do you have any questions for Nick before we wrap up?
The only one I got left was, what social medias are you using for people to catch up on your bands? Are you using Spotify, Bandcamp, and YouTube? What do you prefer?
All our releases are on Bandcamp. And then, for news, we use Facebook and Instagram, really. We have also a website that you can check out. And, we're just trying to slowly branch out, to spread, what we believe to be good music, right?
Mm-hmm. What's your website for our listeners?
HessianFirm.com.
And you're on Big Cartel as well, aren't you, for people to purchase the albums?
Yeah. Because, something I discovered, Discogs charges a lot to sellers. And, if you're selling albums, don't do it on Discogs. The best is to, get the money on PayPal, because, PayPal has a buyer's protection. You charge a little fee for buyer's protection. So, we're not going to be on Discogs, really. But Big Cartel is also very good. They take a very small fee, very quick, and it works really well for everyone.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm sure we'll have you back on again sometime in the future to talk about some of the new stuff you have coming out.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We're still gonna be grinding at it. I've got a few people on the team listening to albums constantly, listening to what you guys share with us. And,
I really appreciate that you guys actually pay attention to what we write.
Yeah, like Lone Goat from Goatcraft said, you guys are our favorite troglodytes.
Oh, really? Oh, we appreciate that. Yeah, he really likes that troglodyte and cave analogy, huh?
Yeah. I mean, that's what a cave dweller is. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. It was kind of funny then that we reviewed him. He would have loved that.
Yeah. Because where I live, we had some issues with some troglodytes, who were actual terrorists, and they were using the caves as terrorist training camps.
Oh wow!
A few years ago. So yeah.
Really?
We have some big caves in like near the Pyrenees, and so people organized to do a few things there.
That'd be cool to do a concert to one of those places.
That would be cool.
Pile everybody into a cavern and.
Or you can, if you're like a raw black metal band, you can go recording there and get some
authentic
atmosphere. It's a true underground music.
Literally.
I think of Incantation when I think of like cavernous music.
Oh, and Alterate is the other one that comes to mind. Those guys always sound like they're in a cave as well. I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for coming on, and we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone who listened today. We'll have another interview coming up soon. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.